As we arrived at Charlotte Douglas International Airport, I was filled with a sense of simultaneous worry and surrealism. This would be my first flight ever, and I had to check a bag full of the supplies that would keep me alive for the next week. But allow me to take a step back. I, accompanied by my good friend Caleb, was flying to Fairbanks, Alaska to meet up with Caleb's old friend, Kat. Kat was working at Pogo Mine, not too far from Fairbanks, and would have a week off, so we thought, how better to spend a week off of work than to backpack through Denali National Park. So with that, we packed our bags, checked in at the airport, and we were off. 2 connecting flights and several hours of layovers ahead of us. After almost an entire day spent traveling, Caleb and I landed in Fairbanks and waited for Kat to arrive. I'd never actually met Kat at this point, only talked to her via text message in order to plan for this trip. When I did finally meet her, however, I was pleasantly surprised by her enthusiasm and professional-looking gear. This girl knew what she was doing. We talked for a few hours, then called a cab to take us to Sven's Hiker Hostel. And let me tell you, that hostel is a wonderful place to be. Our first full day in Alaska was spent running all over town, gathering the supplies we need before going into Denali. At the hostel that morning was a group of college students preparing for a trip into the Arctic Circle. The group consisted of 4 rather attractive guys and 3 equally good-looking girls, and all were quite friendly, and I managed to make nice conversation with one of the guys whom I found particularly cute. After tea, we headed into town, gathered supplies from the nearest grocery store, a Safeway in this case, and then headed to Taco Bell for breakfast, beginning a backpacking trip as only we could. We then made our way to an outfitter by the name of Beaver Sports and got any gear we didn't yet have, which included a few water bottles, sleeping pads, and camp stoves. Before heading back to the hostel, we stopped at a restaurant called Sam's Sourdough Cafe, where we had an absolutely delicious dinner. The next day we woke to brilliant sunlight, a high of about 70, and about 1 billion mosquitoes. That was the day we were to be bussed into Denali National Park, so we broke down camp, packed our bags, and headed into town to wait for what we thought would be a shuttle bus. However, the shuttle bus turned out to be a Sprinter van pulling a trailer, but we loaded up our stuff anyway, and we were just as well off to Denali. Upon arriving, we went to the Wilderness Access Center, or WAC, and bought passes to camp at the Riley Creek campgrounds for the night, as we were too late to catch the last bus into the park. After setting up camp, we headed to the Backcountry Center to talk to a ranger, watch the orientation video, and claim passes for units 6 and 7. In case you're unaware, Denali is divided into 87 units, 41 of which have maximum hiker quotas. We were then given bear-resistant food containers and headed back to our campsite for the night, where we ate dinner, drank hard cider, and packed our bags for the next day. After breaking down camp, eating breakfast, and finishing packing our bags, the 3 of us headed to the bus stop where we waited for the school bus that would drop us off in a random location within our first unit. Kat and I began going over our route through Unit 6, as we'd have to skirt around a wolf den enclosure that's been there since the 70s. The bus arrived on time and we boarded without issue, and only then did I fully realize what we were about to do. We would be the only people for miles, completely at the mercy of our gear, our own skill, and the endless wilderness around us. One slip-up could potentially result in serious injury. I stared out the window, watching the landscape unfold before me, and was relaxed for the first time during this adventure. As the bus came to a stop and Kat started moving beside me, I was roused from my daydream and gathered my things to depart the bus. As we watched that bus drive away, we got out our maps and adjusted our course from our location. We hiked about 3 miles before stopping for the day. I don't think any of us were prepared for how tough that terrain would be. The next 2 days were spent mostly hiking from one location to the next, stopping occasionally to eat lunch or take in the scenery. And there was a lot of scenery. The units we were in are south of the Denali Park Road, bordered by the East Fork River on the west, and the Alaska Range Mountains from the northwest to the south. The elevation is above the tree line, so the ground is covered in wet tundra, separated by the occasional grouping of chest-high shrubs. The ground is also never flat, and we'd find ourselves climbing out of one valley to a ridgeline, only to see a bigger climb in front of us. The last night spent in the park was one I will never forget. We'd been hiking hard that day, and all we wanted to do was make camp and eat dinner. The only problem was that we were on a high spot and in view of the park road, which means we weren't allowed to camp there. After finding a spot to camp, we decided to make several packets of powdered mashed potatoes, and they were the best potatoes I have ever had. The following morning, we broke down camp and had tea while we talked about what the plan was after getting back to the park road and getting on a bus. Our main concern was the direction of travel of the bus. If we caught a bus going deeper into the park, it'd be hours before we got back to the WAC. But if we caught an outgoing bus, we wouldn't have another opportunity to see more of the park. In the end, curiosity got the better of us, and we caught a bus heading to the Eielson rest area before heading back out, which ended up giving us a chance to see Mount McKinley. Our driver was an old man named Ken, who we later found out had been volunteering in the park for years with his wife, but wouldn't be returning the following summer. He told us a very old Native American story of the origin of the mountain, originally called Denali. He spoke volumes about the history of the park and the people who used to live on the land, and I once again found my mind wandering, imagining what it would have been like to live in such an extreme environment without any of the conveniences of modern technology.
You're listening to Sidewalk Confessionals. My name is Jeremy.
And I'm Caleb.
And today we're going to be talking about a trip that Caleb and I took to Denali National Park. How many years ago was that?
It was the summer of 2016, I believe.
2016? Was it really that long ago?
Maybe it was the summer of 2017. When are we now? What century are we in?
I have no idea.
Oh, Lord.
I've lost track of time.
Well, it happened.
It happened a couple years ago.
Yeah.
We went to Alaska. This is the first time I had ever flown.
Mm-hmm. Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, the first time I had ever flown, the first time I had been, like, to a state that far from the state that I was living in. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a cool trip. Yeah. And the first time Caleb had ever done any, like, backpacking of that caliber.
Yeah, that was definitely, like, the most outdoorsy backpacking trip that I've ever had so far. And it's I believe the furthest that I've traveled. I mean, I've been to Britain, but I feel like Alaska is further away. So
yeah. Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah. All right, so yeah, how do you remember that trip?
Well, there's a lot. I guess I remember we went to visit my good friend Kat, who was working there that summer on an internship, and she had a week off, and she invited me to come visit her, and I brought Jeremy along. I think that was your first time meeting her, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah, she's awesome.
And I remember us flying in. We flew in the height of the summer equinox, or the summer solstice, or whatever it's called.
Solstice.
Yeah, that's what it is. And it was bright all day.
22 hours of full sunlight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other 2 hours were just like twilight.
Dim light. Yeah.
And we went in. We spent a day or two at Sven's hostel. So if anybody out there is like planning a trip to Fairbanks, Alaska, stop by Sven's hostel. It's great.
Yeah, Sven's Hiker Hostel in Fairbanks is awesome.
And spent a little time there. Then, we hit Denali, spent some time in the mountains, which were beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful. So on the YouTube version of this, during this, since I took pictures for this trip, I'll be flashing pictures of whatever.
Oh, they're going to enjoy that.
Talking.
Yeah, Jeremy, I want to say he took over 800 pictures while we were there, and he saved the best of the best for this podcast. Actually, he saved them for his own personal reasons, but now's a perfect time to use them.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there were some beautiful pictures. We got to actually see the mountain, Denali.
Mount Denali.
Mm-hmm. We weren't on Denali itself.
It's also called Mount McKinley. Uh-huh. For those of you who don't know, Mount McKinley, its original name is Denali. Mm-hmm. But white people, they like to change shit up.
But we changed it back, so
yeah,
it's Denali again now. And we actually got to see the mountain, which is a rare experience.
Yeah.
So that was nice for us. Yeah, there's lots I could say about our time there. Peanut butter tortillas.
Oh my god, I forgot about those.
The Lord's greatest mashed potatoes.
Oh, yeah.
Fucking... I want to save some for some of the other questions.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember that trip a lot the same way you did. Like I said, it was my first time flying. So definitely when we got to Charlotte Douglas Airport, I was like nervous as hell because like we had to check in, we had to check our bags, we had to go through airport security. I had my camera in my hand.
Yeah. I mean, could you imagine if they had figured out that you were an international terrorist?
Right?
It would have been horrible.
Fucking, I mean, Jesus. Yeah, so that was the whole thing. And then I think that's actually the largest, it's not the largest backpacking trip I had done up to that point, just by number of days. But it was definitely the most strenuous. And it was the first time that I had like done anything like that, like without the support of like family or anything like that. Like all of the gear that I had, I bought. All of the money that I was using was my money.
To be frank, you pretty much planned out the entire, like every gear part of the experience. You planned that out for the both of us.
Yeah.
I had to be very thankful for your knowledge, your survival knowledge, or else I would have been in a tight pickle.
Except for those backpacks. Oh, Lord, those backpacks.
Oh, God, those backpacks. We should have done better.
Yeah. Well, the problem is we didn't have a lot of money to work with.
Yeah.
We used like the cheapest Everest hiking backpacks. If you want to get into backpacking, I'm going to make another podcast about like getting into backpacking. But if you want to get into backpacking, Everest hiking backpacks are not the fucking way to go. They hurt. They're bad. Get an Osprey. If you get an Osprey and do the warranty, you'll always own an Osprey because they'll just always repair it or replace it.
And they're great backpacks.
They're amazing backpacks. It's $300 up front and then you have them for the rest of your life. It's like, why not do it? But anyway, yeah, so I was nervous about all of that stuff. But then once we landed in Alaska, like the air was cooler and a lot less humid than it is here. And it just, I don't know, walking around the airport waiting for Kat to get there was just like, I just relaxed. I was like, I'm here now. I'm in it. There's nothing I can do about it now.
And it was such a cute airport too. It was like
It's
so small.
It's tiny.
Such a contrast with the actual state of Alaska.
I've actually looked it up because I was curious when we went there. They have a lot of private airstrips at that airport.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a really weird airport. I guess it's
like we flew in on a jet, like not a bush plane, but some people were flying in on bush planes.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
just to give you an idea of what it was
I
like.
saw more turboprop fixed wings there than I have at any other airport. But anyway, yeah, so all of that. I was super nervous about that. But then after we were in it, we got to Sven's Hiker Hostel and started doing our shopping and planning out the rest of the trip. It was great. And then I was actually excited about the flight back because, like you said, taking off and turbulence, they're fucking awesome.
Yeah. It's fun. I love airplanes.
Yeah, airplanes are great. So yeah, I remember it very much the same way you do, I think. What was your favorite part?
Oof, my favorite part of that trip. There were a lot of funny things that happened. Really funny things that happened. So, I am going to tell this story. The funniest thing of all that happened while I was there, I think it's now my favorite memory from the trip. At the time that it happened, it was the worst thing that happened to me. But I look back at it with such fondness, and it's that I think for the first few days when I flew in, I don't know, I was feeling like kind of grumbly and I was in a bad mood, and it all culminated like halfway through the trip when
we were at Riley campgrounds.
No, we were already in the mountains.
Oh, we were?
For the culmination.
Oh, I was thinking of something completely different.
I mean, yeah, there were other sucky things that happened, but I was trudging along. It was cold. And then we got to this, we were along the mountain. We were trying to get to a new camp spot. And I stepped in a puddle of mud, which I had been trying to traipse around most of the mud. And then I stepped in one thinking that, oh, well, it's no big deal. My shoes are going to get a little muddy. Let me just get over it. It's mud, there's grass, it's wet, it's cold. Just deal with it. But when I stepped into this small, seemingly innocent spot of mud, I sank all the way up to my knees in it. and that fucking sucked.
The first words out of his mouth, he stopped, he sank, he stepped into it, obviously stopped moving, sank into the mud, and like regained his balance so that he didn't fall forward. And then the first fucking words in his mouth, I will never forget, he put his arms out and he looked up to the sky and he was just like, is this fucking real?
It was hilarious. And then when I tried to get my feet out too, the mud sucked the boots right off of my feet, and I had to pull them out of the mud, and they were just caked in mud. And I hate mud. I hate being dirty. I hate that kind of stuff. So it was awful for me. And then I had to stand in my underwear, change clothes. I think I only had like one clean set of clothes left or something like that.
Yeah.
It was ass. But when I look back at it, it was really just like the best thing that could have happened, because I feel like it flipped a switch after that, and I was like so much more grateful for the rest of the trip, and I was just so much more at ease and so much more relaxed after I got my ass blasted by the mountain.
Yeah.
So it was nice, and it's hilarious. It was just utterly hilarious. It was like, why me? How could this happen to me?
Yeah.
But it did. It was all awesome.
That's cool. So that was definitely one of my favorite parts of the trip. But my favorite part was actually when we got back on the... So if you don't know much about Denali, there's one road that goes through Denali National Park. And you take school buses. Literally, they're just school buses. So there's two types of bus. There's hiker buses, and then there's day trip buses. So when you get bussed into whatever unit you're going to be camping in or hiking through that day or night, you take a hiker bus in. When you're coming back out, you can take a hiker bus out, or you can take a day trip bus back out, because they go all the way to a certain stop, I think the Eielson stop, and then they come all the way back to the Wilderness Access Center, which is the entrance of the park.
The whack.
The whack, yeah.
Back to the whack.
Back to the whack, exactly. So anyway, when we came out, we waited along the road. A day trip bus came, and it had, as its driver,
What was his name?
was this amazing old man named Ken. And there's this very narrow, steep part of the road called the Polychrome Pass. It's nerve-wracking, and it takes a lot of skill to actually drive a bus around the thing, because it has this one hairpin turn. On one side, it's a sheer wall going up. On the other side, it's a sheer cliff going down.
Yeah, honestly, I'm convinced that the bus drivers are wizards, because even while sitting on the bus and experiencing it, I could not believe it was happening.
Yeah, it was insane how he pulled off that turn. But after we did that, this is just a thing that particular driver, Ken, did. He had everyone in the bus raise their hand. I think it was our left hand. It might have been our right hand. One hand. And he said, repeat after me. I survived. And we all said, I survived. The Polychrome Pass. We all said the Polychrome Pass with Ken. So I have that. I kept a journal the entire time, and that's actually written on scribbled on one of the pages. Because it was amazing.
Yeah.
I survived. That year was his last year. So he's not there anymore.
Glad we got a chance to ride with him, though.
Yeah, no, he was great. That whole bus trip, that was my favorite part of the bus trip, but that bus trip back was my favorite part, even though we were fucking starving because we hadn't eaten anything that day. I think we had some tea or something, but we hadn't eaten anything that day. So we were fucking starving, but still, that trip was that part of the trip was my absolute favorite.
Yeah, now that I think about that, the bus trip was awesome.
Yeah, coming around the bend.
And you got some good pictures on the way back too, right?
Yeah, I got a picture of, I'll put it up right now in the video. I got a picture of Caleb looking all Anthony Bourdain. What was your least favorite part of that trip?
Well, that's an easy answer. I knew you were expecting it to be the boot thing, but it's not my favorite part. But the easy answer is the fucking mosquitoes. The 100 million mosquitoes.
Oh, yeah.
My God. I don't have words for it. There were just so many mosquitoes. I feel like I had a beard made of mosquitoes. I must have gotten 100 bites on my face. The mosquitoes were god awful. Everything else was lovely, but I almost would rather have seen a bear than had to deal with the mosquitoes.
Really?
Yeah, almost. Which is I forgot to mention that there was a little something that was setting us on edge before we got on the trip, because before taking the trip, my friend Kat, who had been in Alaska for a few months now, was like, yeah, there's a few safety things that we'll have to go over when you get there, because, there's bears, but it's fine because they never attack anybody, and yeah, as long as you have your bear spray with you, and as long as you follow the right safety procedures, which you will because you're not a total dumbass, everything's going to be okay. And then a week before we got there, she called me and she was a little upset because at her work site, Pogo Mine.
Yeah.
The first fatal bear attack in, I want to say, over 10 years happened at her job.
Yep.
And she was just telling me how safe it was.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I was pretty fucking scared of the bears when we got there.
Huh.
I didn't want to deal with the bears.
Bears. Yeah.
But we didn't see any bears while we were hiking.
Not at all.
We did see bears on the bus ride back.
We did.
Yeah.
And we saw cubs and everything.
Yeah, we saw a mama grizzly, I think it was, with cubs. Yeah. Yeah, so the mosquitoes. Yeah, the mosquitoes were bad, man. We landed.
Awful.
We landed and there were mosquitoes at the fucking airport. We got out of the airport and it was just instant mosquitoes. We got to Sven's, it was even worse. And once we were out in the park, even fucking worse. But no, all of that was not my least favorite part. My least favorite part of the entire thing, this is going to be cheesy. My least favorite part is that we didn't have more time to spend there.
Oh, I thought you were about to say the end, and I'm like, oh, come on.
No. It was that we didn't have more time to spend there. We had a week. We only had 3 days in Denali.
Yeah.
I took 10 days off of work and then got fired almost immediately afterwards.
Worth it.
Totally worth it. Yeah, it was just that we didn't have more time. I wanted to go explore more stuff, take more pictures. I really wanted to spend more time in the park.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, the mosquitoes sucked, but to me, they were just like a part of accepting the fact that we're just gonna have to be. It's
true. You had to accept the suffering, because
it was a little bit of embrace the suck for me. So yeah, it didn't really bother me that much.
Blood sucking.
Yeah, literally embrace the suck. Yeah. That's a thing that gets a lot of hikers and backpackers, actually, is dealing with fucking mosquitoes and just insects in general.
They're horrible. I mean, I'd never been so bothered by pests the way that I was during that trip. I didn't realize that they could exist in such plentitude and that they could come at you in such swarms. Like, when they said, oh, there's going to be mosquitoes, I was expecting to have to swat like 1 or 2 off every few minutes, not have to swat 20 off every few seconds.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. What about that trip will you always remember that you haven't said already?
Well, yeah, because that one part was really memorable. Let me see. What other parts can I remember? I remember. This is hard to describe because it's literally just the imagery of the mountain. But I remember this one part where we were walking and I looked out over the mountain and I saw the expanse of it. And I could see, like, to the left of me, where the mountain was starting to go up, you could see ice caps forming on it. And then, like, spread out below me was all this, like, multicolored moss. It looked like a deciduous forest in the autumn time.
Oh, yeah.
And it was, like, orange and red and, like, different colors. But then there was also, like, green areas, and there was, like, a little stream, and it was breathtakingly
Was that
beautiful.
looking out over the Tech?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we were by the North Fork of the Teklanika River. Yeah, that was beautiful up there.
Yeah, it was absolutely gorgeous. And I think that's the stuff that's going to stick with me forever. It's just the quiet times, standing or sitting and just looking at the mountains and the terrain, soaking up that good nature. That stuff is going to stick with me for the rest of my life. And you can look at pictures all you want, and the pictures are gorgeous. But you never quite know what it is until you're there in it. And it's like, wow, I'm here. And to me, honestly, that trip was a huge payoff because Kat is my oldest friend. And we'd known each other ever since we were 12. and we'd always wanted to take a trip to Alaska together. So that was like the culmination of like a lifetime of longing and desire and dreams and things that I was starting to wonder if they were even possible. And then all of a sudden, and the trip did happen suddenly. I didn't expect it to happen either.
Yeah, no, when Caleb proposed this trip to me, or when he asked me to go with him, he was like, oh, by the way, it was just, he completely random. He was like, oh, by the way, you're going to Alaska with me. And I was like, what? He was like, yeah, you're going to Alaska with me. And 2 weeks later, we were in Alaska. So, yeah.
It happened fast.
Yeah. Caleb had to buy, I didn't have enough money for the trip. Caleb had to buy my plane ticket for me, which I'm very thankful for. I still don't know how you found those tickets so cheaply.
I don't know either. I remember looking for them, but it was like, I just found them and I was like, oh my God, this is cheap. I got to buy this now. And I just did.
Yeah, something that I'll always remember about that trip. That's definitely that. Coming up over that, on that last day when we were on that ridgeline, coming up over, we had that other mountain, out in front of us. To our right, I guess if you're like, if you were looking at the mountain that was directly in front of us, the North Fork of the Tech was down to our left. There was still ice sheets from the winter. Up to like just behind that, also kind of to the right, was the Alaska range of mountains, the north side of the Alaska range of mountains. It was, I guess it's the west side, technically, of the Alaska range of mountains. Just fucking beautiful. It was absolutely fucking beautiful out there. I'll just always remember, like, feeling like, oh shit, like, this is what photographers do. So I took my camera with me to take a lot of pictures of this thing. I wanted to document it. I wasn't into video then. I didn't have the nice Sony camera that could do video. I had this cheap Nikon camera that I got for free. Amanda just gave it to me.
That camera has memories though.
Yeah, that camera is such a terrible camera. But anyway, I had this, little cheapy camera with me, but I was out in Denali National Park taking pictures of mountains and the rivers, and you having your mishap with the boots, and I mean all of that stuff. So yeah, that feeling, like once we were out there, especially that last day on that ridgeline, I pulled out my camera and I just started taking pictures of everything around me. One of them is my background on my screen right now. You can't see it because audition's running.
I have seen it before.
But yeah, I was just like, I pulled out the camera on that last day there after we ate breakfast or whatever, or second to last day, one of those, doesn't matter. And I was like, holy shit, like, I'm a photographer. Like, this is what photographers do. Yeah. They go out, do these ridiculous trips, spend tons of money, tons of time, they get one great picture out of it.
And you got at least 50 great pictures.
I got a couple, but there's one picture in particular that I'm really proud of. It will be up on the YouTube video right now as I'm talking about it. But yeah, there's one picture in particular that I'm very proud of. And that whole trip was amazing. Let's be honest. That whole trip was amazing, but that picture was so worth, like, the pain and suffering.
Is it the one of Kat sitting on the mountain on the rock?
You and Kat sitting up, the tech is down in front of you.
Oh, and us doing our heroic pose?
No. Oh. You guys are sitting on some boulders.
Okay.
The tech is down in front of you. I think Kat has like her water bottle or her life straw or something in her hand. You're sitting behind her, and the range of mountains is up behind you. The clouds have a bunch of attitude. I brought in some like shadows so that the rays of sun are just shining on you guys. Yeah, it's so epic. I love that picture.
Oh, I guess that's another thing that I will say. I just had to slip this in there. I love the video game Skyrim, and I felt like while we were in Denali, that it was like being in Skyrim. That's what the feeling was, just without the magic.
Yeah, I get that entirely. Do you want to go back?
I absolutely want to go back someday. Yes.
Yeah. Easy answer. I absolutely want to go back, and I'm gonna go back. I don't know when.
I don't know when. I don't know how, but it's gonna happen.
It's absolutely gonna happen. I can't not go back.
We need like a 2030 reunion.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. We can't not go back. That
There's too much to do. Alaska's huge. Denali National Park is the size of Rhode Island.
We didn't even get out of our little square, did we?
No, so we were in Unit 6 and 7, and we barely got into Unit 7.
Yeah.
We hiked straight through Unit 6, because Unit 6 borders the road.
Yeah.
And then we spent 2 days in Unit 7, and we barely touched it.
There's so much to do. You could spend years out there, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, the park rangers go back every single year, and a lot of them haven't seen all of the park. They've probably, it doesn't matter whether or not they've been to all the units. There's just so much. The whole thing is the size of Rhode Island, like I just said.
Yeah, it's massive.
Huge. So yeah, definitely going back to Denali. Definitely going back to Alaska. I just want to fuck around Fairbanks.
Yeah.
I mean,
even Fairbanks was nice. There was some cool stuff in Fairbanks. I remember, let me think. I remember us going to that little diner.
Sam's Sourdough Cafe.
Yep. Getting bloody meatloaf. Oh, it was good.
Not bloody meat.
It wasn't bloody, just bloody as in the British interjection, which I shouldn't be using, but still do. So.
Yeah, getting meatloaf from Sam's Sourdough Cafe. Yeah, that was... Oh my God.
It's very satisfying. Was that before we went to Denali or after?
That was before.
Okay.
That was before. That was the day before. We went out. We shopped. We got our groceries. Then we went back to the hiker hostel, threw all our groceries in our tent to be sorted later. Went back into town, ate at Sam's, then went to Beaver Sports. Then we did something else. We fucked around for a little while, and then we came back. Then after we were back from the park, we went back into town on bikes.
Yes.
Kat got her hair cut, and we went to that Guy Fieri restaurant, that barbecue place, and spent an obscene amount of money.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
That was awesome, though. Totally worth it.
Delicious.
And we just walked around Fairbanks or biked around Fairbanks, and it was great.
It was just a good time all around.
Yeah.
Still sad we couldn't bring the bear spray back with us, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, we left it at the hostel.
yeah, hopefully someone made good use of it, or hopefully someone didn't make good use of it, because if you have to use your bear spray, you're probably in a pretty sad situation.
Yeah, you're not having a good time if you have to use bear spray. That's another quick thing on bear spray. Know how to fucking use it. Like, if the wind is blowing from the direction of the bear back toward your face, you're not using your bear spray. Like, try to skirt around the side of the bear to change the wind in your favor, or just don't even try. It's not worth it. You're gonna get covered in it. The bear's gonna fucking eat you.
If you ever hope to survive a bear encounter, you better hope that bear isn't an airbender.
Yeah.
A bear bender.
A bear vendor.
Oh my God.
So, do we have anything planned for the future?
I don't have any specific plans,
I don't either.
but the spirit of adventure is still within me.
Yeah. I've said on the podcast, I've said on the vlog plenty of times that I want to do the Appalachian Trail. Have you done the Grandfather Mountain Trail?
I've certainly been to the Grandfather Mountains, or I've been to Stone Mountain, I want to say, and I think also Grandfather Mountain.
With
I
the bridge?
can't remember. I was really high.
Oh, is that when you went with us? Is that when you and Anthony and me went up to Boone?
No. Yes, and we were also in the mountains, but that wasn't the Grandfather Mountain Trail. Was
No,
it?
that was the Profile Trail. That was fun.
But I spent a lot of time in Stone Mountain. I don't know if I've been to Grandfather Mountain. It's certainly something that I need to do. It's certainly something that I could do today.
Yeah, the Grandfather Mountain Trail is super fun.
It's only 2 hours away, isn't
If I'm not mistaken, yeah. If I'm not mistaken, you need an entire day, though. You need a whole
Does
day.
it rain tomorrow?
Yes.
I think it rains tomorrow.
Yes, it does. So you need a whole day. Go up the Grandfather Mountain Trail. It goes to a ridgeline, and then I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, at the top of that ridgeline, it crosses over and it backs up to the Profile Trail.
Can we tent there?
No, you can't camp there.
We're not allowed to camp at any part?
No.
Oh, let's do it anyway.
They send out rangers.
God fucking damn it.
Yeah. Plus it's cold as shit up there right now. Anyway, but yeah, I don't have anything planned. Nothing planned, but definitely want to have another adventure
Yeah.
soon. Yeah.
I've always wanted to go to the Amazon.
Yeah, I feel like that's something something like that would take a lot of planning.
A lot of preparation. I mean, you don't just want to gallivant off into the Amazon. You're gonna die.
Yeah, you won't have a good time.
Not the least because of the tropical diseases and parasites, but all the other dangers in the Amazon. I mean, it's the fucking Amazon, but still.
Yeah, that would be fun. That would be super, super fun. I mean, I want to travel all over the place, but within, close reach of me, definitely the Appalachian Trail at some point. Yeah. You don't have anything planned?
No, I don't have any plans.
All right.
I live day by day.
Yeah, same. All right. You've been listening to Sidewalk Confessionals. Happy listening, and have a nice day.